Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Lightning Chat. My name is Dilip Advani, and joining me today will be VMware vExpert Aditya Krishnan. And today we'll be talking about business continuity and disaster recovery, which is on top of everybody's mind these days with the health crisis around us. So welcome, Aditya, and please tell us what you're hearing from organizations that you are working with on
Hey,
some of
thanks.
the challenges that you are hearing about.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Dilip. So this COVID situation has actually, changed the way IT teams really work. So people are starting to work more remotely. Working from the office in a lot of situations is no longer possible. So IT teams just have to be prepared to basically set up and make sure that all their employees, all the company employees are essentially able to work remotely. Right. So there's been a faster adoption of newer technologies like virtual desktops, for instance. And the thing with having virtual desktops and being able to work remotely is that there's always a single point of failure, right? There could be a single point of failure when it comes to the end users. They might have issues with either their internet, they might have issues with the WAN network that's traversing through the company's the organization itself. So there could be a lot of different single point of failures that could cause a lot more headaches for organizations. And these are some of the challenges that we're seeing in a lot of IT organizations at this time.
Okay, that's good to know. So, Adi, what do you think they're doing to maintain their business continuity, right? Like
Sure. So
everybody I know has a plan, right? But now what are they experiencing once they're having to put that in action? So tell us more about that.
Sure. So Dilip, you mentioned it correct, right? So you were spot on. So everybody has a plan, right? But a plan, if it's never been used, you've never actually tested it. So unless the plan is actually used and tested, so there is no way to find out. And this is the first time that a lot of these companies are coming to a situation where they have to actually use these business continuity plans, right? So you can quickly see that if businesses have to sustain, they basically need to make sure their environment is correctly provisioned, allocated, and at the same time, like their networks have to be spot on. The application performance has to be adequately provisioned throughout the environment, and this is really what we're seeing in this perspective.
Okay. I also hear about application dependency mapping all the time, right? Especially when people talk about it. I've heard it from our customers when they talk about business continuity and disaster recovery, right? They always say application dependency mapping, right? So can you tell us more about why this application dependency mapping concept is important, why knowing of all the assets is important, and what does it just bring to the table in this scenario?
Sure, absolutely. So application dependency mapping is a huge part of the whole planning process when it comes to business continuity, right? In plain words, application dependency mapping is essentially just being able to map all your applications right from the front end all the way to the back end, whether it's your databases, domain controllers, file servers, and so on, right? Now business continuity with the arrival of VDI in a lot of different organizations becomes more complex, right? Because now you have to start looking at it from the client side all the way to the VDI desktops, the connection servers to like the databases and the other application servers, right? So with this, it becomes very, very important for us to maintain and see what the application dependencies are. This is really where application dependency mapping becomes very, very critical. And being able to see all this information in real time makes a huge difference to IT organizations, being able to identify and see those single point of failures as we had talked about previously.
So are you saying for disaster recovery, once they know their so-called environment, right, using this dependency mapping, right, that they have some sort of a baseline, after they recover from the disaster, they should be able to validate if things are looking okay? Is that what you mean?
Yes, absolutely. So they should definitely have snapshots of how their environment looked like
Yeah.
prior to their prior to their DR or disaster struck, and then they have to see how the disaster recovery system has been working right after that to get a better understanding of how their disaster recovery systems have been performing, and make sure that they correctly provision and get all their employees to be able to connect to their application servers in the backend.
Sure. Okay. Okay. That's really good to know. So, can you tell us, like, 30 seconds or so, what Uila does for application dependency mapping, specifically related to disaster recovery and business continuity?
Sure, absolutely. So what Uila can do is Uila automatically and agentlessly discovers all the applications within your environment, right? So it can identify about 3,000 different applications right out of the box. I believe it's 3,500 now, but
Sure.
just just making sure. So with that, it can link all the different applications, right? With one another, from your web servers communicating to your databases communicating to the domain controllers or any other backend services will be easily mapped out. And
Mhm.
one of the key features of Uila is the ability to actually show changes that are occurring within the environment, right? So apart from automatically identifying and showing how these different dependencies are connected, it also becomes vital to understand what are the changes that are occurring between on a minute by minute basis within your environment, and seeing how these communications can actually affect your environment in general. So that becomes very important, and that's really where Uila can play a key part within most of our customers' infrastructures.
Cool. The one last question I have, right? Again, going back to the disaster recovery, right? Uh, have you seen customers have different resources assigned between their primary site and their DR site? Have you seen any challenges in terms of resource allocation, whether it's compute or storage, uh, between the primary site and the DR site? And then what can users do to, if you've seen those issues, what can users do to prevent that? And then maybe how Uila can help there as well.
Sure, absolutely. So yes, we have seen a lot of discrepancies in the way um, environments work. So most of the time, environments work in disaster recovery in a lot of environments work as a high availability solution, right? To make sure that at least one server at a minimum gets turned on in the disaster recovery, so people can continue to access it even if it's slower, right? Nobody really thought of it as an application that can be fault tolerant, right? And all this while IT teams were present in the office, they could go into the data center anytime they wanted. But now in a situation where IT teams are not really able to move about as they would have wanted to, it becomes harder for IT teams um, to to have a setup where it is not just highly available, but also needs to be fault tolerant in this particular time frame, right? With this, it becomes very critical um, to maintain all these resources in a highly available environment. The resources do not need to have the same um, it does not need to be the same as your primary data center, whereas in a fault tolerant environment, the resources need to be provisioned according to how it was in your primary environment, so that there are no changes in the way the applications work.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Aditya. This was very, very insightful. It was great talking to you today. Once again, for everybody listening to this interview with VMware vExpert Aditya Krishnan. Again, if you want to listen to more Uila Lightning Chats with experts like Aditya, you can visit www.uila.com. Thank you, Aditya, and have a good day and stay safe.
Yeah, thanks, Dilip. You too.
Okay, thank you.